everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into today's Author Talk series brought to you by the Library Speakers Consortium. The Library Speakers Consortium is a partnership of more than 250 library systems across 37 states and Canada now, with the goal of making Author Talks more accessible to communities of all sizes. I am Brandon Adler, your host and moderator in conversation with each of our wonderful, best-selling, prize-winning, and acclaimed authors that you hear from throughout our series year-round. Today, you are in for a huge treat as we are so honored and excited to have award-winning TV host, celebrity chef, and best-selling cookbook author, Chef Jernard Wells, join us to talk about his newest cookbook, Southern-inspired, more than 100 delicious dishes from my American table to yours. Before we dive in, I do want to give you all that quick housekeeping information. Let everything run a little bit more smoothly, and then we will get to know a lot more about our guest. We have compiled some viewer questions that were pre-submitted with registration, but we will also be taking your additional questions throughout this conversation. So when you have a direct question for Chef Jernard, you can click that questions button that's just below this live stream at any time to submit your question. In addition, we invite you to interact with your fellow viewers in the live chat box, also located below the stream. It's always fun to see where everybody's tuning in from. If you are unable to attend the full talk for any reason, you will receive a thank you for attending email in about 24 hours, and in that email, you'll find a link to the recording. Now, to formally introduce our guest for today. Chef Jernard Wells is an award-winning TV host, celebrity chef, best-selling cookbook author, and the host of New Soul Kitchen and New Soul Kitchen Remix on CLEO TV. He is well known for appearing on numerous cooking shows on the Food Network as well as the Cooking Channel over the last decade. Wells has worked with Tyler Perry, NBA All-Star Brandon Ingram, Lady Antebellum, Tom Joyner, New Edition, and BBD. He's been featured on Today Show, Good Morning America, People, Steve Harvey Morning Show, The Ricky Smiley Morning Show, Essence, Daily Blast Live, USA Today, Lifetime, the Oprah Winfrey Network, just to name a few. The James Beard House honored chef is affectionately called the Family Chef because he loves using food to promote positive family images. He and his wife of 25 years have 9 children and live in the Atlanta area. Welcome, Chef. We are so happy to have you here today. How are you?
I am good. Thank you for having me. You know, it's always a pleasure to truly be joining like-minded people that just are intrigued about learning more, even something such as cookbooks about my life. So I just want to thank everyone for tuning in today, and I want to thank you guys for hosting and having me.
Absolutely, it's our pleasure. We are so happy to have you here. So what are we going to watch you make today?
All right, so you know, this is the thing. Of course, everybody came here to chat, but not only are we going to chat, we're going to cook. Because I always say, look, you can't have conversation without good food. And as my grandfather always said, I've never seen a person eating and frowning. So even if you're not eating and cooking along with me, guess what? You'll like what I'm about to fix because they can incorporate this in the comfort of their own home. This recipe is my sauteed cabbage and turkey bacon, straight out of my cookbook. So if anyone already has the book, Southern Inspired, definitely this recipe is amazing. Page 164, I believe it is. And one of the reasons this recipe is just so nostalgic to me because I really love the vegetation and growing up even in the South, even though I was originally born and raised in Chicago, but it was something about growing up on my great-grandparents' farm and just really eating vegetation, cooking with it always excited me.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you say growing up on your grandparents' farm. We received a ton of questions about your kind of journey to being a chef and about your life growing up, and if it was something that you wanted to do as a child. Like Valian is saying, what started this journey? And Ashley is saying, we'd love to hear more about this journey. Did you always know that it was your path?
Yes, it is. It's always about that. And as they say, how can you know where you're going if you don't know where you've been, or even acknowledge where you've came from? And me, I'll dive in, but to answer the question, when I first started off on this journey, I never envisioned being a chef or that I would be here. Although I had been doing it my whole life and I loved it, but it took years before it clicked where Jernard, this is truly your passion. This is what you love doing. This is what people love seeing you do. And because if anybody asked what I was going to be when I grew up, I always told them I was going to be an attorney. I just knew that hard I was going to be an attorney. My mind was set on it. Although my father was a chef, and being born and raised in Chicago, and really enjoying the life and experience there, my father and mother decided they wanted to make an executive decision without consulting me, the child, and moved to Mississippi to help my great grandparents with the family farm and the business. And so here it is. As I said, I moved from the concrete jungle to dirt roads and cotton fields, which was a complete culture shock, but ultimately ended up being the best thing that could have ever happened to me. Because spending that time with my grandparents and my parents, because all we did was we raised pretty much every livestock that you could think, corn, uh, soybeans, smokehouses, you name it, was there. Chickens, eggs didn't cost what they cost right now. We had plenty of chickens running around the yard. But that experience ultimately is what started cultivating the love for food, because I saw how every weekend when my grandmother and my mother, when they would fire up those big pots outside and started cooking, it was not just for our household, it was for the neighborhood, the community. And I really enjoyed seeing the fellowship and how food would bring all walks of life together. And it was just those fun memories. So I started trying to recreate that experience myself by getting in the kitchen, cooking with my father. My father would bring me in the kitchen to cook with him all the time. And, I thought it was more so that he was putting me to work, but more so he was teaching me a life skill. And my mother told me something that always stuck with me. She said, Jernard, you better learn how to cook. You're not guaranteed to get married and have somebody cooking for you. So you better learn how to do it, because you can't live off of fast food alone.
Well, that ended up suiting you well. I read in your cookbook, right? You were the private chef for love connections, like it.
Look, before many moons before, because this is one of my many cookbooks, but this one, Southern inspired, is truly one of my pride and joys, that I really dive more into the backdrop, the back history of Chef Jernard, who I am, my family, why I cook the way I cook. As I always tell people, yes, I'm classically trained. I went to culinary art school. I studied French and Cajun cuisine, but I learned the true foundations of cooking at home. I learned what it really means when they say that they're cooking with love, or that they put love in things like that. And those are the true foundations that really helped build me to where I am. And to fast forward years later, I started writing love cookbooks. My first cookbook was 88 Ways to a Heart, uh, cooking for lovers. And each recipe had a love story and a love name. And at first it started off with a lot of local people in the surrounding city where I was would reach out to me. Hey, I had your food. I heard it was really good. Can you come cook? But when I would come in the home and start preparing a meal for them, and they say, yeah, because I got a date coming over, the first one asked me, hey, would you mind going out the back so they don't know I want to take credit for it? And I went to think, and I said, and I told them, I said, all right, now, if they like the food and it's good and they want more, you know what that means. I got you on the hook now. You got to keep calling me back to get that experience, or either you need to just start hiring me to come teach you how to cook. And so one person later from another, as they said, clients talk. Now celebrities were reaching out for me, and I literally became the hit your food. Come in, create an elegant meal for you, sneak out the back door. You never know the latter until she asks them to cook for them personally and want to watch.
Uh-huh. then she's got you.
Yes. Now, while we're doing it, I'm gonna tell you guys about what we have here, because this dish is really simple. Couple of key ingredients that they want to make sure they have on hand to cook this, as I always say. Chef Jernard's first rule is always a cast iron skillet, guys. I don't care what you cooking, what household you in, you always want to have a cast iron skillet. I got some cast iron skillets that are literally over 50 some years old that I inherited from my great grandmother, and I still take care of them, still oil them, everything. But the cast iron skillet, it always starts with what you're cooking with. Cast iron skillets, the more you cook with them, the better they get, and then just that enriching flavor that you get from it. It's just history in each meal. So start off with that. Turkey bacon, get you some turkey bacon, any kind of your choice. We have a green cabbage, we have red bell pepper, we have a sweet Vidalia onion, we have a red or purple cabbage here, fresh garlic, we have onion powder, garlic powder, we have olive oil. So I've turned the skillet on medium here. We're going to start off with the olive oil, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to dice the bacon, and feel free to ask any questions that you have.
Well, we do have questions kind of piling in. So Amy is asking, do all of your children like to cook with you? Is this a family affair?
At times it is. I must say that. Now, granted, as me and my wife laugh and talk about it, we have 5 girls and 4 boys together, and we're celebrating our 25 years this year. But the one thing that we always laugh about, because we've successfully, as we say, we've successfully pushed 5 out of the nest, off to college, and then we have some that are adulting. We have a nurse that's in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and one in Memphis, Tennessee. And the thing is, even with still having 4 at home, it feels so weird because we used to having such, so many coming through the house at all times. And at one point, when all of them were younger, they were it was like a smorgasbord in Chef Jernard's kitchen, because I had one that doesn't do cheese, one that started out at birth. She's a vegetarian. She don't want anything with that. We got one that all he wants to do every day is he's supposed to just eat pasta. So creating all these different meals, and I took on what my father taught me. I started bringing them in the kitchen, but I wouldn't bring them in to tell them, hey, I want to learn and know about your day, because that's really what I was wanting to do, was just talk to them about life. Because see, what you learn is when people are using their hands, guess what? They tend to talk more and they share more. So I would bring them in the kitchen with me while we cook, and just say, hey, help me with this right here. While they cooking, just talking to them about their day. And doing that, that also allowed me the opportunity to teach them a life skill, which I feel that cooking is definitely a life skill, regardless of where you are, what your financial status is, or anything like that. You may afford to eat out 7-8 times a week. I always think it's great to at least have a good 3 to 4 good recipes in your repertoire that at any given time you can go in the kitchen and fix it in a fraction of the time. So a lot of my kids, all of them know how to cook, granted, and I have a few that have also decided to join in the company business with me and cook along with me. So that's exciting, seeing that growth as well.
Yeah, I bet that's exciting to see that growth. So you mentioned that one of your kids is a vegetarian since birth, and you accommodate that chapter, right, in your cookbook. There's a whole chapter for vegetarians. And Suzanne is asking that can Southern food really fit into a vegetarian lifestyle?
Oh yes, because this is the thing. Also, here, guys, what you see here, I de-seeded my red bell pepper. Now we're going to julienne strip the bell pepper. And for those that don't know what julienne strip is, it's a fancy word that you pay $50,000 to go to culinary art school to learn. So those of you who know it without going to culinary art school, you just saved a ton of money. But that's what we're going to do first here. We're going to julienne strip. And back to your question, is it possible to be Southern and vegetarian? Yes, it is, because this is the thing. With cooking Southern cuisine, it's about the flavors. It's about the season profile. It's not necessarily about the meat, because one of the things that we truly know is that the true source of protein comes from the vegetation that we're feeding the cows, that we're feeding the chickens, that we're feeding the whole hog. So we understand and know that, because we grow more vegetation than anything. And at one point, That is all we had to cook and create with. So that's how we mastered the art of cooking cabbage, cooking collard greens. And then this is the thing, there was always a stigmata of that when you're cooking good collard greens, you got to add fat back or anything like that to it to make flavor. No, you don't. The flavor is in the freshness of it. It's nothing like picking fresh collard greens or going to your local farmer's market, getting a nice fresh pack of it, and seasoning it up with fresh garlic, herb, thyme, oregano, bell peppers, onions, adding in those flavors. And as you allow it to cook down and you're using vegetable stock, which you can make yourself as well, all those things really enhance flavors. I can even get into talking about skillet corn. Oh, there's nothing like good skillet corn, and of course cooked in a cast iron skillet, guy. So now that I julienne, we're going to just do a nice little slice, and we're going to add them in, because one of the things what we're doing, we're building layer on layer of flavor. Because as you see, there are minimal dry ingredients, and we focus more on our fresh vegetables for this dish to come to life.
Now, pertaining to that red bell pepper, Cody is asking, what is your favorite substitute for bell peppers? Because I'm allergic. I usually go with a poblano.
You know what? Poblanos are very good. I think a poblano would do well. And then if you like a little heat to it, you can even add in a nice good habanero. Just discard the seeds and more so go for the flavors. Because when people hear about peppers, the first thing they think, oh, they're hot. And what's really hot about it than anything is the seeds. So as long as you discard the seeds, you focus more on the flavor of it than anything. But I think a poblano will be very good with it. And it'll also enrich those flavors. And also a nice good chipotle. A good chipotle pepper adds a nice good authentic subtle smokiness to it, which ties it back into a nice good southern diaspora.
Chef, we have a lot of people asking, what kind of cast iron skillet are you using? And if you don't have a cast iron skillet, what's a good substitute?
If you don't have a good cast iron skillet, a good substitute is simply hopping in your car, going to the nearest good store to sell one and getting it as fast as you can. Uh, no, just if you don't have a good cast iron skillet, don't beat up yourself. You get one in due time. What you do is just get you a nice good non-stick skillet that's good to work with. And the key is, as I always say, when you're working with your skillets, try not to use metal utensils. Use your nice good wooden spoon so that you don't have to worry about scraping the bottom of it, especially when it comes to your non-stick skillet. Scraping it and causing debris and those little breakdown of chemical products getting in it. What you want to do is get you a nice good wooden spoon so you don't have to worry about that. So any good non-stick would do just fine, because the key is as always, I tell you that's the number one ingredient, but it still boils down to the flavor and how you season it and blend it together. So I think you should be fine, guys. There are so many different cast iron skillets. It's hard to even just call off a particular one. All of them are good. I must tell you that right there. All of them are definitely good. So you can't go wrong. This one right here that I'm using is Austin Foundry Cookware, which Austin Foundry, I think they're out of Wisconsin. They make a very good good American-made cast iron skillet that I think is top notch, as well as large cast iron has a good one. So those are two that you can look at. You can Google, look at getting, that works very well also. So now we're going to start slicing our cabbage after we peeled the outer leaves and rinsed it off. All right. So as I'm going, go ahead on, shoot with more questions, because I know you got some.
Oh, we got plenty. So I really love that your cookbook tells this beautiful story of not just Southern cooking, but Southern cooking being like the true like American cuisine, the origin.
It is. Yes.
And
Uh-huh.
so Mary is kind of expanding on that and saying, what would you say are the most unique features of Southern cooking, and what makes it the American cuisine?
I have to say one of the most unique features of Southern cooking is we know that predominant vegetation comes from the South that's used pretty much throughout the Americas. We know that even rice was at one point in South Carolina, if you've ever heard or read about Carolina gold rice, we were producing so much rice here. We were selling rice overseas, where now it appears to be vice versa. So it shows how we started putting the stamp on the culture of food. A lot of people, when they think about Southern cuisine, what they typically think, oh, everything is fried, dyed, and laid to the side. It's not. Um, of course, we lean on frying periodically because frying does give you a maximizer flavor. But we have so many other recipes in the Southern repertoire outside of just fried chicken. Might I add, fried chicken is dominant. I don't care what culture, where you're going in America, you're going to experience some form of fried chicken that derived from out of the South. Those are authentic recipes that came from here. Even when you look at a lot of the sauteed dishes that you love, that you see going around the world, when you're looking at street corn, a reinvention of cream style corn, those things that are traditionally sauteed and cooked and coming from out of the South, what we were accustomed working with. And the reason why we were accustomed working to vegetation is because at one point we know the South wasn't as successful as other parts of the United States, and it was considered more of the as they call it, the Bible Belt line, a lot more poverty, things like that. So what we had to eat and perfect was the art of vegetation that helped increase that mobility of food and our lifestyle. And then overall, as we expanded, just like I speak about my migration of my family moving from Chicago to Mississippi, and then later half of my family going back, and that's how these flavors and these experiences get into other regions of America that you love and that you eat. It's all a foundation of coming from out of the southern diaspora of America.
Yeah, you you give some really good like historical tidbits and information throughout your cookbook. And Molly is saying, like, what kind of research did you do to develop this cookbook? And how long did it take you to create this cookbook? But I mean, or the other ones, did this one take longer than the others?
Yes, this one definitely took longer than the other ones. Also, guys, what you see here, first I did some long slits in the onion. Then we're going to do like tic-tac-toe. I'm going to come back around the opposite way, same slits, and the reason is that so you get your nice, good dice without having to go through it multiple times here, guys. So that's always, as I always say, a nice, good cheat sheet for a diced onion when you're cooking in the comfort of your own home. But um, one of the things it took me for this particular book here, it took me right at a year and some change almost to write this one because I wanted this one to truly tell a historic story as well as me pay homage to the culinary ancestors that came before me that even paved the way for me to have this opportunity. And it evolved around me and my team doing a lot of research, pulling up a lot of articles, searching different archives, um, to really back channel. Even required me traveling to different museums like the African American Museum in Washington D.C. and other places throughout the United States that I went on a journey throughout the Southern Bible Belt just to really study and learn about our culture. And we compiled all of that information, and then what I wanted to do was link it back to my heritage to tell the story when people ask the question, why do I cook? Or why do we cook the way we cook? And I wanted to break it down and tie it to this originally started with us. As I always tell people, especially when it comes to even African American chefs, you know, Thomas Jefferson had an African American chef, even during a time like that. Even George Washington had one. And I always tell people, we were celebrity chefs before celebrity chefs was even a thing.
It's true. I'm just like, I'm hearing first, I'm so happy that you said tic-tac-toe for the onion because you don't know how many videos I have watched to try to do that efficiently, and I think that'll stick in my mind. Um,
Yes, yes, very simple. I always talk about that on my cooking show, New Soul Kitchen. That, might I add, comes on every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. and it's available on all cable outlets and streaming platforms. And one of the things, and reason why I said this, what I lead into all of this extra, the extra cabbage, the extra onions, things like that. I believe in utilizing everything and repurposing all of my ingredients. So anytime if you're cutting vegetables, onions, those end caps, the seeds, things like that, you want to save that stuff. Put it in a Ziploc bag. Later on, when you got extra time or what have you, take it out of the freezer, boil it, turn it into stocks, repurpose it for something else. That way you really get to maximize the money that you spend and maximize every dish when it comes to creating meals in your home. So you use all of it. Now, what I'm going to do here, we've added our green cabbage to it. Now I'm going to add our garlic powder, onion powder to it here. We're going to add a little cracked black pepper to this. And now, as we've been going, as you see while we're talking, I'm going to add a little kosher salt. Then I'm going to just slide this out the way. And as we've been talking, if you notice, what I've been doing is slowly searing everything. And that is how you build flavors, guys. You build flavor in a dish and you just compound. You start sauteing one thing and you just build it all up. And now we just work it together.
Yeah, for me, I feel like it's always the thing that I put in first always gets overcooked. Does it just mean that the heat's too high?
It is. And this is the key, as I always tell everyone, a pro tip. And what this tip is to always, or to try to ensure that you're going to create the most flawless possible meal that you can. What you want to do is you want to always get your mise en place out. And some may ask, mise en place, guys, that's French. Forget all your ingredients in order. That's another $50,000 learning lesson for culinary school. So what that means is get all your ingredients out, like what you saw what I did. And if you notice, whenever you watch cooking shows, you'll see when the chef is getting ready to start off, they typically have everything laid out in front of them. When we're typically what you would call cabinet and pantry cooks. We know what we want to eat. We heading home from work. We got it all figured out what we're going to fix. We walk in the house. First thing we do is turn the stove on, the oven on, put a skillet on there, and then we just start pulling stuff out the refrigerator, going back and forth to the pantry, whipping everything up, and then you think about, oh, I forgot something. Then you step away, it burnt. Oh, I forgot this. It's missing out of the dish. Now the dish don't taste right. If you take just 15 minutes out of your time and gather all of your ingredients that you will be using during the time that you're cooking, I can almost guarantee you that your meal will turn out much better, because then you can add everything. You know the measurements that you already have, and you're standing there, you're nursing, as I call it, you're babysitting. You don't have to run all over the place, and that works so much more better.
Mm-hmm. I think that's probably some of the best advice ever, because then you also don't make as much of a mess.
You don't, nope. And it allows you can clean as you go if you want.
So we have a lot of questions about the Southern pantry. So like what Barbie and Susan are both saying, like, what are constants? What are a constant pantry staple for the Southern pantry, and how do you think that a Southern pantry differs from, say, a New England pantry?
Let's see. Can't tell you exactly what may be in a New England pantry, but I love New England states food, so I can only imagine that it's gonna be good. And look, I know when I open the refrigerator, the freezer, I need to see some form of a clam chowder that's been made just waiting on me. If I walk into your kitchen, let me grab an earpiece here slipped out. Can you hear me there?
Yeah, we can.
All right, good. Okay, so with a southern pantry. Well, first, what you're gonna see several things in there. I think in most southern pantries, you're gonna always see, of course, cornmeal. Because on any given Sunday, we'll break out a cast iron skillet and make some cornbread. One of the other things you'll typically see in a southern pantry, you'll see a bag of black-eyed peas, dried black-eyed peas, a bag of pinto beans. You're going to see those in any given southern pantry. Of course, in any good southern pantry, you're typically going to see either a CLEO seasoning, because those are typically ingredients that we cook with. You're also at most of the time you'll even see molasses in a southern kitchen. You'll either see Lost the earbuds here. I'm gonna step away and grab it real quick. Hopefully, and see that's all. So you want to make sure you got your earbuds in place. If I had to step away too long from the food, it would have got away from me. So also, you molasses or either dark brown sugar. And a lot of times people say, okay, in the South they use brown sugar, they use a lot of brown sugar. And the reason that we use the brown sugar more so is not just so for the sweetener of brown sugar, but when you cook brown sugar down, you extract the natural molasses out of it. And we're going for that molasses tone in a lot of dishes that you see us making. Of course, you're going to see flours. Some form of an all-purpose flour or buttermilk batter flour in a pantry. All-purpose flours are going to typically be made for making roux. In the South, we typically call it either a roux or a gravy. The same thing, but the further you go towards like Mississippi, New Orleans, those areas, Louisiana, you're going to start hearing more of the roux side of creating gravies. Uh, so those are things that you typically see in the pantry at any given time in a Southern kitchen. And I have to say, if you want to go into a Southern refrigerator, in that Southern refrigerator, any given time, you're going to see heads of cabbage. You're going to see collard greens. You're going to see spinach. You're going to see kale. If we want to talk about protein, you're typically going to see some form of a chicken breast in there. You're going to also see some form of probably a 2-inch thick pork chop. If you're into eating pork chops, and they eat a lot of pork, also in the South as well, they'll typically get a 2-inch thick pork chop bone in because they're going to stuff it. They're going to stuff it with either some form of apple or something like that when they're searing it, smoking it, or baking it. Also, you typically see beef ribs in the refrigerator as well. So those are just some of the things that you may possibly see in the Southern pantry if you travel to someone's home in the South.
I think that's a great rundown. I, I live in New Orleans, and most of those things are in my pantry, and
Yeah,
not because,
I see.
not because I'm from the South, though, but because my husband is from here, and so those are things that I can attest that are definitely in
Yes.
our pantry. So Heather is talking about, can Southern food be healthy, or is that an oxymoron? But you wrote Southern modified, so we know that from your cookbook that Southern food can have a healthy take.
Yes, it is. Southern Modified is the sister cookbook to Southern Inspired. Southern Modified. What I want to really share and teach the viewer or the reader more so with my books as I went on a culinary journey over the years is showing what Southern Modified is showing them how to modify as we would call traditional food for today's healthier lifestyle. Those are some things that I even started incorporating more in my life, whereas eliminating a lot of the trans fats instead of using a lot of vegetable oil and things like that. We started substituting out for olive oil, grapeseed oil, things like that. Those things make a big difference. Also, instead of necessarily cooking with traditional flour. If you want to eliminate that out, you can use rice flour. We do things with gumbo recipes, incorporating rice flour out of Southern Modified. So I really want to show the reader how the foods that you create and eat in the South, what Southern food is not bad. It's what you put in it, or make that conscious decision to put in it, and everyone shouldn't be grouped into the same field. Like there's an overkill where we feel that okay, we're putting a lot of sugar, we're putting a lot of sodium and things like that in it. But if you focus more on like traditional Southerners do, if you focus more on the fresh herbs, you'll get those accents out of it, and that's what a lot of us tend to do cooking more with fresh rosemary, fresh thyme, things like that, oregano, using saffron, things like that to really accent dishes without using all of the additives more so. And that's what Southern cooking is. And that's one of the things that I learned even growing up, that the saying is still true that sometimes less is more.
Mhm. Great, thank you. Jen would like to know, how do you come up with the recipes for your cookbooks? It must be a fun process getting to taste everything. But then also I can imagine it might get a little frustrating when it's not like perfect.
um, fun story about that. Why I laughed. A fun fact when I was a child and my father would bring me in the kitchen as I would tell to cook with him, like which I started cooking at the age of 10. Um, my father would bring me in the kitchen, have me cook with him so much, and I saw how it made people feel, so to the point I would literally have dreams about cooking food. And it got out of hand to the point where I started sleepwalking. I had a problem with sleepwalking as a child. And per my parents, I would wake up in the middle of the night. I would go in the kitchen and I would cook these meals and apparently cook the meals in my sleep. When they wake up in the morning, they would say that the kitchen was destroyed and in shambles, but it was always this great tasting dish that they dared to try that I created. And so they took me to a doctor for it to figure out what's going on with Jernard. We don't know he looks. It's nice and all, but he's messing up the kitchen at night, and we don't want him to hurt himself. So the doctor tells us, said, what you want to do is try to time when you think that he's waking up in the middle of the night and doing this, and you go in and wake him up. Like if he's holding a knife, try not to startle him, but wake him up and make him write down whatever he was dreaming about. And they started doing this, and I'm here to say to this day I have over 5,000 recipes that I dream about. That's why when I first started writing cookbooks, this one I think Southern Inspired is my sixth book. I had enough recipes to write books for the next 5 years, and then compile that with everything that I had learned from spending time with my father and grandparents. It was just a food musical geniusness just going through my mind, and I wouldn't change any of it for the world. And to fast forward, even doing that, and what led me into really going towards this passion of cooking, when I was 16, my father passed away, and I wanted a car going into my senior year in school, and I didn't want to burden my mother with raising money or giving me money, anything like that, because at this point we became a single family household of me and I had two younger siblings that were still at home, and so I knew how to cook from learning from my father, and I came up with the bright idea. I wanted to open a restaurant up. Pitched the idea to my mother, and my mother said, Jernard, um, where do you plan on opening a restaurant up and how much money you got? I said, I got $50. And she said, like I said, where you gonna open a restaurant up with $50? And where you get the $50 from? I said, I was cutting one of the neighbor's yards. And I got this idea. She said, well, I tell you what, if you want to open a restaurant up, you got to do it the right way. And I was like, what is the right way? All I want to do is just make money to buy a car going into my senior year in school, because I didn't want to ride the bus anymore. I got tired of seeing the dirt roads and cotton fields all day. And I said that, hey, uh, people will pay attention to me if they see me in the car. So my mother said, and of course this was pre-Google. My mother said, all those encyclopedias that I bought that's in that bookshelf that's collected dust. You go get them out, go get them, blow them off. You figure out what a business plan is, and you come back and see me. So I did just that. Unbeknownst to her, 2 weeks later, I came back with what I thought was Chef Jernard's business plan. Presented it to her. She said, okay. Now that you've done that, now you got to get a business license and everything, because you got to do this the right way. She took me to the local courthouse. The business license was $5. The people laughed and thought, oh, he think he's a little businessman. But they gave me the business license. So here it is. I'm on my way. So now my mother said, Jernard, okay, now you're in business. And of course, this is Mississippi. Laws weren't as stringent as they are now. We're opening up a restaurant and serving food to the community. Uh, my mother said, where do you plan on getting supplies? I said, I remember my dad used to go to this local wholesaler. Can you take me there? So we get there, and she says, Jernard, how much money do you have now? I pulled it out and said, I got $45 because I spent $5 paying for the business license. She said, did you learn about shipping and receiving while you was doing your research? I said, yeah. She said, explain it to me. I explained it to her, and she said, yes. Shipping and receiving ain't free. And she snatched $10 out of my hand and said, this for bringing you here. And so now I'm thinking to myself, man, my own mother gonna take all my money before I even get started. So I pouted. I go in the grocery store, the wholesale store, and I buy a lot of items that I learned to create from my father, homemade pizzas, bolognese, things like that. Um, and the first week in the neighborhood, I think I ended up making $150 just selling to the construction workers. So now I'm thinking of them, hey, they got to come by early in the morning to purchase their lunches, to purchase their lunches before they go out to laying their sod, building on houses, all those things. And I'm getting up, so now I started selling them breakfast. So now I got them ordering breakfast and lunch. Then I tell them, hey, on your way back home, I'll be here cooking, and all this is during the summer. You could order a dinner plate for me. So lo and behold, by the end of the summer, I was making over $3,000 a month selling food out of my mother's kitchen at 16 years old. Made enough money to purchase my first car, and the first car, it wasn't even like I originally planned or what my mother thought. It was, as we say, it was an old clunker. It was $500, and I told my mother I wanted that, and my mother said, "You want that hunk of junk? Who's gonna pay attention to you in that? Ain't nobody gonna want to go out with you and nothing that. But it's your money. You do what you want to do with it." And I said, "Mom, I got another vision in mind." She said, "Okay." I got the car, took it home, cleaned it up, and put on the side of it. Now I'm delivering, and I started delivering to the people in the community. And from there, graduated school, made enough money to purchase my first brick and mortar restaurant outside of a HBCU college in Holly Springs, Mississippi. I was attending. And this is the thing, you asked the question earlier, somebody asked the question earlier about when did I know I was going to be a chef. Granted, all while doing this, opening a brick and mortar up, selling food out of my mother's kitchen, all while doing this, if anyone asked me if I was going to be a chef in life or what I was going to be, I always told them I was going to be a lawyer. I just knew I was going to be a lawyer. I was dead set on, look, I'm going to be a lawyer. And it wasn't until one day a prominent individual in the city that where my first restaurant was in came in and wanted to meet the chef. And here it is, I'm this young scrappy gentleman that comes out and he asks me about what culinary art school did you go to? And I'm like, I go to Russ College. He said they offer culinary. No, I'm majoring in political science, but because I got this business, I got a minor. I'm getting a minor in business and marketing. He argued me down, told me I wasn't a chef. Long story short, I felt like I was defeated. I went in the kitchen, I grabbed the yellow pages and said, I'm drawing out of college. I'm finding the best culinary art school I could go to because he ain't gonna tell me I'm a chef. And that's how I started out with becoming a chef.
Thank you for that story. I love that story. I'm also curious what your mother's rent was on her kitchen.
Hey, my mother said since I was a startup venture, it was pro bono.
Okay.
And one of the things as my success continued to grow, and I had my first opportunity to cook for the premier first lady of Bermuda, and they flew me in, and I said that I wanted my mother to experience life through my eyes and what I see. I didn't want to come back and share the story of how exciting it was because she was on the forefront who believed in this wild fetched dream of Chef Jernard creating a restaurant out of her house one day. And so everywhere I went, everything I did, even while I was traveling, cooking for Tyler Perry, I took my mother with me. I always told her she was the only person that was a part of the staff that didn't have to do anything, but just stand around and enjoy life.
Good for you. That's the way to do it.
Yes. So look, check out this right here. As we've been talking, as you can see here, the cabbage has been wilting down and all of those flavors have been releasing into each, so you can savor each and every bite. You got your cabbage, you got your bell peppers. Let me slide this out
You
the way.
close your eyes, you can smell it too.
I know, right? Yes. And this dish right here, and these are, as I always say, these are those happy dishes. When you create something like this right here, it's just about spending time just spending time talking with those that you love. Look, I'm on here spending time with you all while cooking my dinner. But check this out, guys. It's really that simple. Can you guys see what we got going on here?
Can see the steam
Mm-hmm.
rising off of that. That looks
Yes,
amazing.
yes. Let me grab here. These earbuds. I guess it's a good tool. So let's try these.
Everybody grab a fork.
I know, right? Let's dig in here. Let me try. As I said, look at this right here. I got notes of the bacon on here, the onions, the red and white cabbage here. Mm, mm. See, you know how you know it's good? It's when you take that first bite and it instantly makes you close your eyes without even wanting to. And what I really love is like I'm getting from the cabbage, I'm getting notes from the hickory, from the turkey bacon, which offers a nice little smoky savoriness from it, sweetness from the bell peppers and the cabbage that brings it to life, and then notes from the other of the fresh garlic and the onion. So this right here, these are one of those dishes that I don't care what day of the week. As I always say, especially when it comes to dishes like this, they can make great side dishes or main dishes.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much for cooking that for us. The demo was amazing. We have a lot of folks asking about your journey in like
Mm-hmm.
food competitions.
Ah, yes. Now,
How did you get started in that?
I of course, as my journey progressed in the restaurant industry, and then it led me to, okay, I have all these recipes. What else can I do with them? I started writing cookbooks, which 88, 88 Ways to a Heart was the first one. And then from there, um, I always said I wanted to, from a chef standpoint, I really wanted to be a household name. I grew up watching some of the most iconic chefs on TV, um, like Chef Irma Lagasse, who I really loved as a child watching, Chef G. Garvin, all of those greats. And I said I would really love to share my gift and my talent with the world, and also my humor, of course. Um, and I remember years ago, I took a trip back to Chicago. They were casting for I think it was Hell's Kitchen, and I went out for Hell's Kitchen, and I passed through everything with flying colors to be on the show. And they came back and told me at the time, they said, although I was a great candidate, great fit for the show, because I had already started creating accolades for myself, they couldn't have me on the show because I already had the cookbook out, things like that. And they were looking for, I guess, just really newcomers, just fresh and raw. And I guess it makes sense, you know, because if you've already created and accomplished some things in life, I guess why would you be on there letting Chef Ramsay talk to you all crazy now? But Chef Ramsay in person is a really cool guy. So please know that. So anyway, um, going going through that and not having that opportunity, I went to thinking, what's other ways? And as they say, I do believe in the law of attraction, and I just started just saying I knew something was going to come my way. And I guess about 6 months later, I get a call from Embassy Road in Food Network with the show that's called Chef Wanted with Ann Burrell. And they brought me to New York to take over the oldest steakhouse in the United States. It's called Old Homestead. Still open to this day. The food is amazing in Chelsea, in the Chelsea market area. And I went in and I always said if I had an opportunity to present myself in the best light on TV, I was going to make those 15 minutes last a lifetime. Um, I went on, did that show. I won the keys to the restaurant for a night, which was an amazing experience. And after I did that show, and that show was all centered around my first cookbook, which is 88 Ways to a Heart. I created these unique princess cut diamond ring fabricated filet mignons and things like that on the show. And From there, my phone started ringing. So then I get a call to come on Cutthroat Kitchen. If you guys have ever seen Cutthroat Kitchen with Elton Brown, you know that show is where they paid money to sabotage you and take your ingredients away. Elton would say, okay, you guys got 60 seconds to run in the grocery store and shop to grab all the ingredients that you need to create me the best spaghetti and meatball dinner. The common or the average person, first thing they're going to do, they're going to run in the pantry. In those 60 seconds, they're going to grab pasta sauce, they're going to grab spaghetti, and they're going to grab whatever ground beef or protein that they're going to put in there. And what's going to happen is the moment you come out, Eldon is going to give each one of you guys $20,000. Is going to say, who would give me $1,000 to take away his pasta? Who would give me $2,000 to take away his ground beef? So when you shop, you have to learn to shop at a disadvantage. And so when I was going, for instance, shopping for something like that, yeah, I get the traditional staples, but also I'm going to get things like eggplant. I'm going to get flour, all mushrooms, all these different things. So if someone pays to take money, take an ingredient from me, if they take my pasta from me, that's fine. I got flour, I'll make it from scratch. And that's how I always thought from that point of the game. And that's why I'm one of the only chefs to win that show 2 times in a row. Because it's really hard. And then I always tell people, man, I grew up in Mississippi. I didn't have all them fancy gadgets. You can pay to take them away all day long. I can cook. All I need is a cast iron skillet and I get it done for you. And then from there, went on to Food Network Star. Food Network Star season 12. Bobby Flay and Giada mentored me throughout that one. Amazing, amazing show. I walked, I think the show was about 12 weeks or so. I walked away as the runner-up that year. And then from there, I became a contributor on the best things I ever ate on Cooking Channel, and still does that to today. Amazing show. I highlight some of the best authentic food that I love and that I experienced around the United States. And then from there, sit-in judge on Chop Jr. And then it later led me on to having my own show. TV One and Comcast NBC created and launched the network CLEO TV about 4 years ago. And the CEO and founder of TV One, Kathy Hughes, has been mentoring me for years. As a matter of fact, she wrote the foreword on the book. Yeah, so I was truly honored with that, wrote the foreword on the book. And that's where I've been. And that's Chef Jernard's TV journey thus far.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So, Danielle has asked a couple of times, what culinary tips can you share to help expedite the cooking process for a working mom of 3? I'd imagine for a working father of 9, you probably have a few.
Yes, indeed. Look, I always say that the best for a working mom of 3, because I completely understand how life, work definitely gets in the way. And when you start off feeling one way, and by the time you make it home, traffic can beat you up. Or even if you worked at home, you've worked from home all day. There's just the calls coming in and wore you out, and you kind of bombed. What I've always done was, I think meal preps are the best way to go. You can even go online on Amazon and order the little containers that you can prep and hold your meals in your refrigerator in, and prep you out. You and the family prep you out at least 2 to 3 days, and you would think, okay, well, I don't really have time. The best time to do it, I always say, is do it on the weekends. If you have free time on the weekends, on a Saturday or Sunday, prep you out 3 days worth of meals to get you through a portion of the week. Most people probably tend to eat out in between that, so your meals will carry over day. And it's always good because you got that if you're too busy or something, emergency or something come up, the kids can always grab one out, or you grab one, and you're getting the proper nourishment. And then also by doing that, it allows you to know what you're putting in your food, or what's in your food, because that's one of the most important things that I think we have to always look at. Yeah, it could taste good when we order and we eat it, and it can be so amazing. But do you know what's really in it? And those are the things what's important. And I think that's key, especially when I create food and I teach others to cook from Southern inspired or my TV show New Soul Kitchen. It's important about getting in there, spending their time and learning and seeing what's in there and not to be afraid to experiment. Experiment with different ingredients, different herbs and spices. You're amazed how you can get an experience out of the same protein. I can give you a salmon and you can create that salmon 7 different ways where it seems like a different meal seven days out of the week.
Speaking of different, you have an amazing biscuits and gravy recipe in Southern inspired. And Mary is saying, what's your secret to your delicious biscuits and gravy? But looking at the cookbook, I think that I know. I think I know the answer to that, at least for the gravy. That must have been a lot of fun taste testing.
Yes, it was with the champagne. Because is
Uh-huh.
that what you're looking at? The shit? Yes, indeed. It's as I always tell people, especially with the gravy, it's always about the roux. It's always about the roux. And then when you add that champagne into the gravy, it really brings it to life and give it a nice, good effervescent tone.
How did you come up with that? Is this just something that you tried, like experimentation, like you were just saying?
I've always, of course, because I talk a lot about rules. I'm always a fan of gravy. The original gravy recipe came from my mother. It was one that my mother inherited from her great grandmother and cooked it. And I years ago I wanted to create an upscale brunch for my wife for Mother's Day. And I'm thinking to myself, what can I do? Of course, because I know my wife loves biscuits and gravy, it's morning time. And so I had a bottle of champagne because I was making mimosas. And I said, you know what? I really like the acidity in the champagne, so I'm gonna add it into the gravy to thin it out versus using a lot of chicken stock. And boy, when I tell you, it is so amazing. And this particular champagne gravy, you don't even have to use it on biscuits. Say if you want to do a nice good smothered chicken, baked
Mm.
chicken, or a nice good rotisserie chicken, and you create this gravy and pour it over the top of it. Perfect. Sunday dinner, brunch, you name it. You can't go wrong.
Yeah, that's amazing. Robin wants to know, what would you say is your favorite chef hack or shortcut that the rest of us could probably use?
Are there any chef hacks or shortcuts? Um, I think, as I was sharing earlier, the best chef hack or shortcut proof is what I talked to you guys about earlier is your mise en place. Get all your ingredients out. Once you know, even if this is the thing, even if you're winging a dish and you're like, I'm just cooking off of pure muse and aspiration, you have an idea what you want. So go ahead and get those main ingredients out and place them in front of you. It shortens your time every time. And that's the reason why when you see a lot of recipes and you'll see the breakdown where it says prep time this, cook time this right here, complete time here, is because that prep time is a big factor in what a lot of times what deters people from cooking. It's not always the actual fire to heat that deters them. A lot of times it's just going through the prep. It's just going through the manual process of it that bogs people around. And I'm here to tell you, cooking is amazing. If you hadn't tried it, you're interested in trying it, you definitely should try cooking. It's a stress reliever. And also, I know a lot of people like, because I used to watch my grandmother or my mother, they would go in the kitchen, especially during the holidays, and they in the kitchen for 7, 8, 9, 10 hours cooking. Trust me, if you go in that kitchen, they ain't in there cooking. They in there hanging out just to stay away from you, because that's the relaxing part of the day. So always know you can retreat to the kitchen when everybody else in the house is driving you crazy.
I have definitely used that excuse. I'm cooking. Please
Yes.
take me. So to close this out, Sherry would like to know, what do we serve with our cabbage and turkey bacon dish?
Okay. With the cabbage and turkey bacon dish, typically what I would serve is a blacking. I would typically serve a blacking fish, which you can do blacking mahi. Mahi, you could do If you like a sea bass, me, of course, I love a good catfish. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't like catfish. Look, I grew up in Mississippi. I love a good black king catfish. So amazing. You can always serve that with it, as I always say. You can do even rosemary and mint lamb chops. Very good with it. I serve that with it a lot also. So you can't go wrong with either of those options there. So you can do any kind of blackened fish good. You can do a nice good roasted or baked chicken, even a grilled chicken, and then also lamb chops.
I've already made your blackened catfish recipe, and ooh, so good.
Thank
So
you,
good.
thank you.
Well, thank
Now,
you for, oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, and one of the things about my recipe, guys, if you follow the recipes, you won't go wrong, because that's another thing that took my team and I so long to create this particular book, is because every recipe, as I recanted it from growing up and put it to paper, we went in the kitchen and we created it from beginning to end to ensure that it tastes great, just the way you see it and envision it. And I thank you guys. I really do. I thank you guys for the time. This really means a lot. As I say, in being a chef is culinary arts, and it's truly this is what it's our art form. And the best way that we show love is showing love through our food and those that enjoy it.
Yeah, and thank you very much for participating in your art form, because you truly are a master at it, and we very much enjoyed the time with you today. So thank you. And I also want to extend a huge thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in to our author talk today with Chef Jernard. Without your support, none of this would be possible, and we thank you for choosing to spend your time with us. As a reminder, below the live stream video, you can find a link to Chef Jernard's cookbook, Southern Inspired. We look forward to seeing you all on March 28th for the final talk of the month, when we talk to New York Times bestselling author Pam Jenoff about her most recent book, Codename Sapphire. And then again on April 4th, when we talk with New York Times bestselling cartoonist and author Kate. You can register for these and lots of other great events on your library's event page. I am Brandon Adler.